The Elementary Forms of the Religious Life by Émile Durkheim. Book number 2, The Elementary Beliefs. Part number 3, Totemic Beliefs, continued. The cosmological system of totemism and the idea of class. We are beginning to see that totemism is a much more complex religion than it first appeared to be. We have already distinguished 3 classes of things which it recognizes as sacred, in varying degrees: the totemic emblem, the animal or plant whose appearance this emblem reproduces, and the members of the clan. However, this list is not yet complete. In fact, a religion is not merely a collection of fragmentary beliefs in regard to special objects like those we have just been discussing. To a greater or less extent, all known religions have been systems of ideas which tend to embrace the universality of things, and to give us a complete representation of the world. If totemism is to be considered as a religion comparable to the others, it too should offer us a conception of the universe. As a matter of fact, it does satisfy this condition. The fact that this aspect of totemism has generally been neglected is due to the too narrow notion of the clan which has been prevalent. Ordinarily it is regarded as a mere group of human beings. Being a simple subdivision of the tribe, it seems that like this, it is made up of nothing but men. But in reasoning thus, we substitute our European ideas for those which the primitive has of man and of society. For the Australian, things themselves, everything which is in the universe, are a part of the tribe, they are constituent elements of it and, so to speak, regular members of it. Just like men, they have a determined place in the general scheme of organization of the society. The South Australian savage, says Feason, looks upon the universe as the great tribe, to one of whose divisions he himself belongs, and all things, animate and inanimate, which belong to his class are parts of the body corporate whereof he himself is a part. As a consequence of this principle, whenever the tribe is divided into 2 phratries, all known things are distributed between them. All nature, says Palmer, in speaking of the Bellinger River tribe, is also divided into class phratry names. The sun and moon and stars are said to belong to classes phratries just as the blacks themselves. The Port Mackay tribe in Queensland has 2 phratries with the names Yungaru and Wutaru, as do the neighbouring tribes. Now, as Bridgman says, all things, animate and inanimate, are divided by these tribes into 2 classes, named Yungaru and Wutaru. Nor does the classification stop here. The men of each phratry are distributed among a certain number of clans. Likewise, the things attributed to each phratry are in their turn distributed among the clans of which the phratry is composed. A certain tree, for example, will be assigned to the kangaroo clan, and to it alone. Then, just like the human members of the clan, it will have the kangaroo as totem. Another will belong to the snake clan. Clouds will be placed under one totem, the sun under another, etc. All known things will thus be arranged in a sort of tableau or systematic classification embracing the whole of nature. We have given a certain number of these classifications elsewhere, At present we shall confine ourselves to repeating a few of these as examples. One of the best known of these is the one found in the Mount Gambier tribe. This tribe includes two phrases, named respectively the Kumite and the Kroki. Each of these, in its turn, is subdivided into 5 clans. Now everything in nature belongs to one or another of these 10 clans. Feason and Howitt say that they are all included within it. In fact, they are classified under these 10 totems just like species in their respective classes. This is well shown by the following table based on information gathered by Kerr and by Feason and Howitt. Phrases. Clans Kumite, fish, hawk, pelican, crow, black cockatoo, a non-poisonous snake, croaky, tea tree, an edible root, a white crestless cockatoo. Details are lacking for the 4th and 5th croaky clans. Things classed in each clan. Kumite, smoke, honeysuckle, certain trees, etc. Blackwood trees, dogs, fire, frost, etc. Rain, thunder, lightning, clouds, hail, winter, etc. The stars, the moon, etc. Fish, seal, eel, the stringy bark tree, etc. Croaky, duck, crayfish, owls, etc. Bustard, quail, a small kangaroo, etc. Kangaroo, the summer, the sun, wind, the autumn, etc. The list of things attached to each clan is quite incomplete. Kerr himself warns us that he has limited himself to enumerating some of them. But through the work of Matthews and of Howitt we have more extended information today on the classification adopted by the Audiobook tribe, which enables us to understand better how a system of this kind is able to include the whole universe, as known to the natives. The Audiobook also are divided into 2 phrases called Gurogiti and Gumiti, Krokich and Gamich according to Howitt. Not to prolong this enumeration, we shall content ourselves with indicating, after Matthews, the things classed in some of the clans of the Gurogiti phrase. In the clan of the Yam are classified the plain turkey, the native cat, the mopoke, the dime owl, the mallee hen, the rosella parrot, the pewee. In the mussel clan are the grey emu, the porcupine, the curlew, the white cockatoo, the wood duck, the mallee lizard, the stinking turtle, the flying squirrel, the ringtail opossum, the bronze-wing pigeon, the wyjugla. In the sun clan are the bandicoot, the moon, the kangaroo rat, the black and white magpies, the opossum, the anguard hawk, the gumtree grub, the wattle tree grub, the planet Venus. In the clan of the warm wind are the gray-headed eagle hawk, the carpet snake, the smoker parrot, the shell parrot, the Murrican hawk, the dickamer snake, the ringneck parrot, the myridae snake, the shingleback lizard. If we remember that there are many other clans, Howitt names 12 and Matthews 14 and adds that his list is incomplete, we will understand how all the things in which the native takes an interest find a natural place in these classifications. Similar arrangements have been observed in the most diverse parts of the Australian continent, in South Australia, in Victoria, and in New South Wales, among the Ualai, very clear traces of it are found in the central tribes. In Queensland, where the clans seem to have disappeared and where the matrimonial classes are the only subdivisions of the phratry, things are divided up among these classes. Thus, the Wakelbera are divided into two phratries, Malara and Wutaru. The classes of the first are called Kurgila and Banbi, those of the second, Vungo and Obu. Now to the Banbi belong the opossum, the kangaroo, the dog, honey of little bees, etc. To the Vungo are attributed the emu, the bandicoot, the black duck, the black snake, the brown snake. To the Obu, the carpet snake, the honey of stinging bees, etc. To the Kurgila, the porcupine, the turkey of the plains, water, rain, fire, thunder, etc. This same organization is found among the Indians of North America. The Zuni have a system of classification which, in its essential lines, is in all points comparable to the one we have just described. That of the Omaha rests on the same principles as that of the Audiobook. An echo of these same ideas survives even into the more advanced societies. Among the Haida, all the gods and mythical beings who are placed in charge of the different phenomena of nature are classified in one or the other of the two phratries which make up the tribe, just like men. Some are eagles, the others, crows. Now the gods of things are only another aspect of the things which they govern. 184 This mythological classification is therefore merely another form of the preceding one. So we may rest assured that this way of conceiving the world is independent of all ethnic or geographic particularities, and at the same time it is clearly seen to be closely united to the whole system of totemic beliefs. In the paper to which we have already made allusion several times, we have shown what light these facts throw upon the way in which the idea of kind or class was formed in humanity. In fact, these systematic classifications are the first we meet with in history, and we have just seen that they are modeled upon the social organization, or rather that they have taken the forms of society as their framework. It is the phratries which have served as classes, and the clans as species. It is because men were organized that they have been able to organize things, for in classifying these latter, they limited themselves to giving them places in the groups they formed themselves. And if these different classes of things are not merely put next to each other, but are arranged according to a unified plan, it is because the social groups with which they commingle themselves are unified and, through their union, form an organic whole, the tribe. The unity of these first logical systems merely reproduces the unity of the society. Thus we have an occasion for verifying the proposition which we laid down at the commencement of this work, and for assuring ourselves that the fundamental notions of the intellect, the essential categories of thought, may be the product of social factors. The above-mentioned facts show clearly that this is the case with the very notion of category itself. However, it is not our intention to deny that the individual intellect has of itself the power of perceiving resemblances between the different objects of which it is conscious. Quite on the contrary, it is clear that even the most primitive and simple classifications presuppose this faculty. The Australian does not place things in the same clan or in different clans at random. For him as for us, similar images attract one another, while opposed ones repel one another, and it is on the basis of these feelings of affinity or of repulsion that he classifies the corresponding things in one place or another. There are also cases where we are able to perceive the reasons which inspired this. The two phrases were very probably the original and fundamental basis for these classifications, which were consequently bifurcate at first. Now, when a classification is reduced to two classes, these are almost necessarily conceived as antitheses. They are used primarily as a means of clearly separating things between which there is a very marked contrast. Some are set at the right, the others at the left. As a matter of fact, this is the character of the Australian classifications. If the white cockatoo is in one phratry, the black one is in the other. If the sun is on one side, the moon and the stars of night are on the opposite side. Very frequently the beings which serve as the totems of the two phratries have contrary colors. These oppositions are even met with outside of Australia. Where one of the phratries is disposed to peace, the other is disposed to war. If one has water as its totem, the other has earth. This is undoubtedly the explanation of why the two phratries have frequently been thought of as naturally antagonistic to one another. They say that there is a sort of rivalry or even a constitutional hostility between them. This opposition of things has extended itself to persons. The logical contrast has begotten a sort of social conflict. It is also to be observed that within each phratry, those things have been placed in a single clan which seem to have the greatest affinity with that serving as totem. For example, the moon has been placed with the black cockatoo, but the sun, together with the atmosphere and the wind, with the white cockatoo. Or again, to a totemic animal has been united all that serves him as food, as well as the animals with which he has the closest connection. Of course, we cannot always understand the obscure psychology which has caused many of these connections and distinctions, but the preceding examples are enough to show that a certain intuition of the resemblances and differences presented by things has played an important part in the genesis of these classifications. But the feeling of resemblances is one thing and the idea of class is another. The class is the external framework of which objects perceived to be similar form, in part, the contents. Now the contents cannot furnish the frame into which they fit. They are made up of vague and fluctuating images, due to the superimposition and partial fusion of a determined number of individual images, which are found to have common elements. The framework, on the contrary, is a definite form, with fixed outlines, but which may be applied to an undetermined number of things, perceived or not, actual or possible. In fact, every class has possibilities of extension which go far beyond the circle of objects which we know, either from direct experience or from resemblance. This is why every school of thinkers has refused, and not with good reason, to identify the idea of class with that of a generic image. The generic image is only the indistinctly bounded residual representation left in us by similar representations, when they are present in consciousness simultaneously, the class is a logical symbol by means of which we think distinctly of these similarities and of other analogous ones. Moreover, the best proof of the distance separating these two notions is that an animal is able to form generic images though ignorant of the art of thinking in classes and species. The idea of class is an instrument of thought which has obviously been constructed by men. But in constructing it, we have at least had need of a model, for how could this idea ever have been born, if there had been nothing either in us or around us which was capable of suggesting it to us? To reply that it was given to us a priori is not to reply at all. This lazy man's solution is, as has been said, the death of analysis. But it is hard to see where we could have found this indispensable model except in the spectacle of the collective life. In fact, a class is not an ideal, but a clearly defined group of things between which internal relationships exist, similar to those of kindred. Now the only groups of this sort known from experience are those formed by men in associating themselves. Material things may be able to form collections of units, or heaps, or mechanical assemblages with no internal unity, but not groups in the sense we have given the word. A heap of sand or a pile of rock is in no way comparable to that variety of definite and organized society which forms a class. In all probability, we would never have thought of uniting the beings of the universe into homogeneous groups, called classes, if we had not had the example of human societies before our eyes, if we had not even commenced by making things themselves members of men's society, and also if human groups and logical groups had not been confused at first. It is also to be borne in mind that a classification is a system whose parts are arranged according to a hierarchy. There are dominating members and others which are subordinate to the first. Species and their distinctive properties depend upon classes and the attributes which characterize them. Again, the different species of a single class are conceived as all placed on the same level in regard to each other. Does someone prefer to regard them from the point of view of the understanding? Then he represents things to himself in an inverse order. He puts at the top the species that are the most particularized and the richest in reality, while the types that are most general and the poorest in qualities are at the bottom. Nevertheless, all are represented in a hierarchic form. And we must be careful not to believe that the expression has only a metaphorical sense here. There are really relations of subordination and coordination, the establishment of which is the object of all classification, and men would never have thought of arranging their knowledge in this way if they had not known beforehand what a hierarchy was. But neither the spectacle of physical nature nor the mechanism of mental associations could furnish them with this knowledge. The hierarchy is exclusively a social affair. It is only in society that there are superiors, inferiors, and equals. Consequently, even if the facts were not enough to prove it, the mere analysis of these ideas would reveal their origin. We have taken them from society, and projected them into our conceptions of the world. It is society that has furnished the outlines which logical thought has filled in. But these primitive classifications have a no less direct interest for the origins of religious thought. they imply that all the things thus classed in a single clan or a single phratry are closely related both to each other and to the thing serving as the totem of this clan or phratry. When an Australian of the Port Mackay tribe says that the sun, snakes, etc., are of the Yungaru phratry, he does not mean merely to apply a common, but nonetheless a purely conventional, nomenclature to these different things. The word has an objective signification for him. He believes that alligators really are Yungaru and that kangaroos are Wutaru. The sun is Yungaru, the moon Wutaru, and so on for the constellations, trees, plants, etc. An internal bond attaches them to the group in which they are placed, they are regular members of it. It is said that they belong to the group, just exactly as the individual men make a part of it. Consequently, the same sort of a relation unites them to these latter. Men regard the things in their clan as their relatives or associates. They call them their friends and think that they are made out of the same flesh as themselves. Therefore, between the two there are elective affinities and quite special relations of agreement. Things and people have a common name, and in a certain way they naturally understand each other and harmonize with one another. For example, when a Wakelbera of the Malara phratry is buried, the scaffold upon which the body is exposed must be made of the wood of some tree belonging to the Malara phratry. The same is true for the branches that cover the corpse. If the deceased is of the Banbi class, a Banbi tree must be used. In this same tribe, a magician can use in his art only those things which belong to his own phratry. Since the others are strangers to him, he does not know how to make them obey him. Thus a bond of mystic sympathy unites each individual to those beings, whether living or not, which are associated with him. The result of this is a belief in the possibility of deducing what he will do or what he has done from what they are doing. Among these same Wakelbera, when a man dreams that he has killed an animal belonging to a certain social division, he expects to meet a man of this same division the next day. Inversely, the things attributed to a clan or phratry cannot be used against the members of this clan or phratry. Among the Audiobook, each phratry has its own special trees. Now in hunting an animal of the Gurugiti phratry, only arms whose wood is taken from trees of the other phratry may be used, and vice versa, otherwise the hunter is sure to miss his aim. The native is convinced that the arrow would turn of itself and refuse, so to speak, to hit a kindred and friendly animal. Thus the men of the clan and the things which are classified in it form by their union a solid system, all of whose parts are united and vibrate sympathetically. This organization, which at first may have appeared to us as purely logical, is at the same time moral. A single principle animates it and makes its unity. This is the totem. Just as a man who belongs to the Crow clan has within him something of this animal, so the rain, since it is of the same clan and belongs to the same totem, is also necessarily considered as being the same thing as a crow. For the same reason, the moon is a black cockatoo, the sun a white cockatoo, every black nut tree a pelican, etc. All the beings arranged in a single clan, whether men, animals, plants, or inanimate objects, are merely forms of the totemic being. This is the meaning of the formula which we have just cited, and this is what makes the two really of the same species. All are really of the same flesh in the sense that all partake of the nature of the totemic animal. Also, the qualifiers given them are those given to the totem. The Audiobook give the name mir both to the totem and to the things classed with it. It is true that among the Arunta, where visible traces of classification still exist, as we shall see, different words designate the totem and the other beings placed with it. However, the name given to these latter bears witness to the close relations which unite them to the totemic animal. It is said that they are its intimates, its associates, its friends. It is believed that they are inseparable from it. So there is a feeling that these are very closely related things. But we also know that the totemic animal is a sacred being. All the things that are classified in the clan of which it is the emblem have this same character, because in one sense, they are animals of the same species, just as the man is. They, too, are sacred, and the classifications which locate them in relation to the other things of the universe, by that very act give them a place in the religious world. For this reason, the animals, or plants among these may not be eaten freely by the human members of the clan. Thus in the Mount Gambier tribe, the men whose totem is a certain non-poisonous snake must not merely refrain from eating the flesh of the snake, that of seals, eels, etc., is also forbidden to them. If, driven by necessity, they do eat some of it, they must at least attenuate the sacrilege by expiatory rites, just as if they had eaten the totem itself. Among the Yualai, where it is permitted to use the totem, but not to abuse it, the same rule is applied to the other members of the clan. Among the Arunta, the interdictions protecting the totemic animal extend over the associated animals, and in any case, particular attention must be given to these latter. The sentiments inspired by the two are identical. 191-191. However, there are certain tribes in Queensland where the things thus attributed to a social group are not forbidden for the members of the group. This is notably the case with the Wakelbera. It is to be remembered that in this society, it is the matrimonial classes that serve as the framework of the classification, see above, p. 144. Not only are the men of one class allowed to eat the animals attributed to this class, but they may eat no others. All other food is forbidden them. Howitt, Nattr, p. 113, Kerr, 3, p. 27. But we must not conclude from this that these animals are considered profane. In fact, it should be noticed that the individual not only has the privilege of eating them, but that he is compelled to do so, for he cannot nourish himself otherwise. Now the imperative nature of this rule is a sure sign that we are in the presence of things having a religious nature, only this has given rise to a positive obligation rather than the negative one known as an interdiction. Perhaps it is not quite impossible to see how this deviation came about. We have seen above, p. 140, that every individual is thought to have a sort of property right over his totem and consequently over the things dependent upon it. Perhaps, under the influence of special circumstances, this aspect of the totemic relation was developed, and they naturally came to believe that only the members of the clan had the right of disposing of their totem and all that is connected with it, and that others, on the contrary, did not have the right of touching it. Under these circumstances, a tribe could nourish itself only on the food attributed to it. But the fact that the things thus attached to the totem are not of a different nature from it, and consequently have a religious character, is best proved by the fact that on certain occasions they fulfill the same functions. They are accessory or secondary totems, or, according to an expression now consecrated by usage, they are subtotems. It is constantly happening in the clans that under the influence of various sympathies, particular affinities are forming, smaller groups and more limited associations arise, which tend to lead a relatively autonomous life and to form a new subdivision like a subclan within the larger one. In order to distinguish and individualize itself, this subclan needs a special totem or, consequently, a subtotem. Now the totems of these secondary groups are chosen from among the things classified under the principal totem. So they are always almost totems, and the slightest circumstance is enough to make them actually so. There is a latent totemic nature in them, which shows itself as soon as conditions permit it or demand it. It thus happens that a single individual has two totems, a principal totem common to the whole clan and a subtotem which is special to the subclan of which he is a member. This is something analogous to the nomen and cognomen of the Romans. Sometimes we see a subclan emancipate itself completely and become an autonomous group and an independent clan, then, the subtotem, on its side, becomes a regular totem. One tribe where this process of segmentation has been pushed to the limit, so to speak, is the Arunta. The information contained in the first book of Spencer and Gillen showed that there were some 60 totems among the Arunta, but the recent researches of Strello have shown the number to be much larger. He counted no less than 442. Spencer and Gillen did not exaggerate at all when they said, in fact, there is scarcely an object, animate or inanimate, to be found in the country occupied by the natives which does not give its name to some totemic group. Now this multitude of totems, whose number is prodigious when compared to the population, is due to the fact that under special circumstances, the original clans have divided and subdivided infinitely. Consequently, nearly all the subtotems have passed to the stage of totems. This has been definitely proved by the observations of Strello. Spencer and Gillen cited only certain isolated cases of associated totems. Strello has shown that this is in reality an absolutely general organization. He has been able to draw up a table where nearly all the totems of the Arunta are classified according to this principle. All are attached, either as associates or as auxiliaries, to some 60 principal totems. The first are believed to be in the service of the second. This state of dependence is very probably the echo of a time when the allies of today were only subtotems, and consequently when the tribe contained only a small number of clans subdivided into subclans. Numerous survivals confirm this hypothesis. It frequently happens that two groups thus associated have the same totemic emblem. Now this unity of emblem is explicable only if the two groups were at first only one. The relation of the two clans is also shown by the part and the interest that each one takes in the rights of the other. The two cults are still only imperfectly separated. This is very probably because they were at first completely intermingled. Tradition explains the bonds which unite them by imagining that formerly the two clans occupied neighboring places. In other cases, the myth says expressly that one of them was derived from the other. It is related that at first the associated animal belonged to the species still serving as principal totem. It differentiated itself at a later period. Thus the Chant-Unga birds, which are associated with the Wichetli grub today, were Wichetli grubs in fabulous times, who later transformed themselves into birds. Two species which are now attached to the honey ant were formerly honey ants, etc. This transformation of a subtotem into a totem goes on by imperceptible degrees, so that in certain cases the situation is undecided, and it is hard to say whether one is dealing with a principal totem or a secondary 1.195 as how it says in regard to the Audiobook. There are subtotems which are totems in formation. Thus the different things classified in a clan constitute, as it were, so many nuclei around which new totemic cults are able to form. This is the best proof of the religious sentiments which they inspire. If they did not have a sacred character, they could not be promoted so easily to the same dignity as the things which are sacred before all others, the regular totems. So the field of religious things extends well beyond the limits within which it seemed to be confined at first. It embraces not only the totemic animals and the human members of the clan, but since no known thing exists that is not classified in a clan and under a totem, there is likewise nothing which does not receive to some degree something of a religious character. When, in the religions which later come into being, the gods properly so called appear, each of them will be set over a special category of natural phenomena, this one over the sea, that one over the air, another over the harvest or over fruits, etc., and each of these provinces of nature will be believed to draw what life there is in it from the God upon whom it depends. This division of nature among the different divinities constitutes the conception which these religions give us of the universe. Now, so long as humanity has not passed the phase of totemism, the different totems of the tribe fulfill exactly the same functions that will later fall upon the divine personalities. In the Mount Gambier tribe, which we have taken as our principal example, there are 10 clans. Consequently the entire world is divided into 10 classes, or rather into 10 families, each of which has a special totem as its basis. It is from this basis that the things classed in the clan get all their reality, for they are thought of as variant forms of the totemic being. To return to our example, the rain, thunder, lightning, clouds, hail, and winter are regarded as different sorts of crows. When brought together, these 10 families of things make up a complete and systematic representation of the world, and this representation is religious, for religious notions furnish its basis. Far from being limited to one or two categories of beings, the domain of totemic religion extends to the final limits of the known universe. Just like the Greek religion, it puts the divine everywhere. The celebrated formula pi alpha nu tau pi lambda rho eta theta epsilon nu, everything is full of the gods, might equally well serve it as motto. However, if totemism is to be represented thus, the notion of it which has long been held must be modified on one essential point. Until the discoveries of recent years, it was made to consist entirely in the cult of one particular totem, and it was defined as the religion of the clan. From this point of view, each tribe seemed to have as many totemic religions, each independent of the others, as it had different clans. This conception was also in harmony with the idea currently held of the clan. In fact, this was regarded as an autonomous society, more or less closed to other similar societies, or having only external and superficial relations with these latter. But the reality is more complex. Undoubtedly, the cult of each totem has its home in the corresponding clan. It is there, and only there, that it is celebrated. It is members of the clan who have charge of it. It is through them that it is transmitted from one generation to another, along with the beliefs which are its basis. But it is also true that the different totemic cults thus practiced within a single tribe do not have a parallel development, though remaining ignorant of each other, as if each of them constituted a complete and self-sufficing religion. On the contrary, they mutually imply each other. They are only the parts of a single whole, the elements of a single religion. The men of one clan never regard the beliefs of neighboring clans with that indifference, skepticism, or hostility which one religion ordinarily inspires for another which is foreign to it. They partake of these beliefs themselves. The Crow people are also convinced that the Snake people have a mythical serpent as ancestor, and that they owe special virtues and marvelous powers to this origin. And have we not seen that at least in certain conditions, a man may eat a totem that is not his own only after he has observed certain ritual formalities? Especially, he must demand the permission of the men of this totem, if any are present. So for him also, this food is not entirely profane. He also admits that there are intimate affinities between the members of a clan of which he is not a member and the animal whose name they bear. Also, this community of belief is sometimes shown in the cult. If in theory the rites concerning a totem can be performed only by the men of this totem, nevertheless representatives of different clans frequently assist at them. It sometimes happens that their part is not simply that of spectators. It is true that they do not officiate, but they decorate the officiants and prepare the service. They themselves have an interest in its being celebrated. Therefore, in certain tribes, it is they who invite the qualified clan to proceed with the ceremonies. There is even a whole cycle of rites which must take place in the presence of the assembled tribe. These are the totemic ceremonies of initiation. Finally, the totemic organization, such as we have just described it, must obviously be the result of some sort of an indistinct understanding between all the members of the tribe. It is impossible that each clan should have made its beliefs in an absolutely independent manner. It is absolutely necessary that the cults of the different totems should be in some way adjusted to each other, since they complete one another exactly. In fact, we have seen that normally a single totem is not repeated twice in the same tribe, and that the whole universe is divided up among the totems thus constituted in such a way that the same object is not found in two different clans. So methodical a division could never have been made without an agreement, tacit or planned, in which the whole tribe participated. So the group of beliefs which thus arise are partially, but only partially, a tribal affair. To sum up, then, in order to form an adequate idea of totemism, we must not confine ourselves within the limits of the clan, but must consider the tribe as a whole. It is true that the particular cult of each clan enjoys a very great autonomy. We can now see that it is within the clan that the active ferment of the religious life takes place. But it is also true that these cults fit into each other, and the totemic religion is a complex system formed by their union, just as Greek polytheism was made by the union of all the particular cults addressed to the different divinities. We have just shown that, thus understood, totemism also has its cosmology.